Do you want to know how lap time is related to car setups? Then stick around because we're gonna set up the Porsche GT3 in Le Mans Ultimate. My name is Arnoud, I've been sim racing for years, have created hundreds and hundreds of car setups in different simulators, and I always set them up in skill level. So when you're a beginner and new to the sim, you will absolutely enjoy the Porsche with a level 1, and when you progress into more skillful driving, you need more rotation in the car, and in this video I'll explain how to get that rotation, bring the lap time down, but staying consistent. So let's get into it. So I have a video on the Porsche on Interlagos, and that's a little bit outdated, so I want to redo this, and you got like, we're gonna do this on Qatar, we're gonna do it in the Porsche, and we're going to explain how setup aggression actually influences our lap time. Setup aggression is such an interesting thing because what you think is aggressive might be like normal to me or vice versa. So I have like different levels of setup, and I will also show an alternative route in setting up cars. And the value of this video is going to be to kind of break your brain and think about, hey, if I change this, then X, Y, Z happens, or I change that and something else happens. Let's start with a level 1 setup, which is designed for people that are driving for the first 10 hours or 15 hours. So you can actually enjoy this car without spinning or dying all the time. Feel free to copy these values. Pause the video if you need. First I'm going to show a lap, and then I'll explain what changes we can make on this one to make it more aggressive to your skill level. Now, to keep this video as interesting as I possibly can, have a look on how I'm driving this car. There's going to be a few distinct areas where we are hurting on our lap time. So we're trail braking into this corner, and this car is just super stable, but it's also very stable on the throttle. So once I can finish the car into rotating it through these corners, it will just be planted and will launch out of the exits. But there is an element of understeer. Later I will also show how understeer and oversteer and how it creates lap time, but what it basically means is when I don't have the rotational freedom or the pointiness in the car, you can see here I had to lift a lot to make the corner. The reality of fast setups versus safe setups are that we are introducing a layer of understeer in the car so we can maintain control, start pushing, and then we can create some sort of consistency, but then the car setup needs to evolve, as we all need to evolve, because you start becoming more familiar on this track, you start to understand where you can hit the throttle, where you need to be careful, and a level 1 will just create a big margin and safety net so you can actually enjoy the Porsche on this track. And like over here as well, I can touch the curbs, I can hit the throttle, I can also remain my steering input. And for everyone who's kind of new, you don't have the refinement and skill level to make micro direction changes or like small throttle inputs and braking inputs differently. You can be really harsh, maintain control, and actually put in laps and build consistency. Because if it's too hard, you'll quit, and if it's like too easy, you get this boring understeer. Now this lap was a 57.7. Let's look at setup, how we can make it aggressive, and how we can go faster. Reality of car setups is a little bit like you're gonna have safety, you're gonna have understeer, but you're gonna be limited to lap times. And that's why I set them up into different skill levels, because we have all different skill levels and preferences on how our cars act. You can still be we can still be somewhat competitive with a level 1, but it is limited by the understeer. So let's create a setup that has more oversteer as we have more speed in the low speed sections and in the high speed sections. When we make a ride height change and spring changes, we're changing the rake and the dynamic rake of the car. To make it super simple, imagine a blue box pulling the car into a certain balance. Now when we increase the rear ride height and stiffen up rear springs from an aerodynamic standpoint, aerodynamically there's going to be more force on the front of the car under high speed, not the low speed, and now we get like more rotational freedom. So we are becoming more responsible on how the car acts. Before we were limited in understeer, now we can have more control. We can have point the car more through these corners, which will like create a different limit in the car. And if you're liking this content this far, could you please hit the like button? That would really help me out. And check out skill level setups in the link below, or a Pimax discount codes. Currently we have 150 off accessories for the Crystal Light and Crystal Super. Check the links in the description. If you use my links, I'm forever in your debt, sir. And we also did a few damper changes and a little bit of less toe, just to get that more like rotation. We want rotation. So now we're on the level 3 setup, and everything is a little bit different now because I need to be careful here. You can see that my wheel needed to unwind here because there was an element of oversteer and I had to correct it. But when you see me enter these corners and go on the throttle, you can see that I'm a little bit down on the delta. Now I'm also still a human, I'm not an esporter or anything, but I can feel this car has more lap time in the car because I can hit the throttle more and I can enter corners faster. But I also have an element of oversteer, and you can see when I'm unwinding the wheel at times. So over here you can see that like pulling your wheel into counter rotation, like turning it backwards to control the rear end, is basically what this setup kind of requires. You can see it here as well. There's like this micro rotation, but we are half a second down on the lap time. If you don't have enough skill, you'll lose the car on different parts of the track. And now we can actually, like, I also still had to lift here. I don't really think it was a great exit. So you can see that as well over here. There's still some understeer in the car, but this sector we actually driving as well. But I also need to be more careful over here too. There's like these curbs are pulling me more into rotation, and I'm basically, like you can see here as well, how I'm oversteering. Basically, this is a little bit how you can think about it. Now, again, this is like 6 tenths down from the previous lap with a big mistake in there. And that's just basically the nature on how I set up this setup. But I also have B levels that get a different feel. Now let's talk about those setups as well. This was a 56. It's not that impressive. I actually struggle really on this track, so let's move on. Now I want to show the level 5 setup first before we go into a B level setup. That's the white line. Think about changes in your car setup, like the high speed is going to be rake and rear wing, and the slower section is going to be more about springs and anti-roll bars. Later in this video I will also show how this level is completely different compared to these ones. To make a level 3, a level 5 setup, we actually didn't do a lot of changes. I changed the preload, so when I'm releasing the throttle with lower preload, the car wants to enter a little bit better, and I created one click of softer front springs. And that's basically all I needed to get more rotation in the car in slow corners. But basically the spring setup is like stiffer on the front, softer on the rear, rake in the car, and I still get that planted feel. I also did damper changes a little bit to get a little bit of a different transition in how the car felt. And now we are on this setup. So have a look, you can take it over. Let's look at the lap. Now we're on the level 5 setup, and I'm actually on my personal limit if it accounts for the high speed rotation. Because in sector 3, I'm going to gain a lot of time, but I'm also way on the edge. I mean, I actually wouldn't really be that confident in driving this setup for an endurance race, for instance. I would go like a level lower, level 4, or maybe the level 3 instead. So what this basically means is that we have the rake in the car combined with the front springs, giving me this limit on how the car feels. So because I want to have the soft rear suspension to give me the launch on every exit, I need to increase the rear ride height to make the car rotate. But if I go too far on the rear ride height, the car just gets dangerous. So for this current spring setup, we are kind of limited on how the car wants to rotate under the high speed. So, and that brings a certain balance and car feel that one might agree with and think this is a nice setup, and others might think it's not, like, this is not what I prefer. And that will be for the last setup as well, with the similar lap time, but with a completely different approach, and you're also gonna see that in the different sectors. Now over here, I'm really on the edge. The car really wants to rotate. I need to balance the rear. My rear tires are constantly on the grip limit. And yeah, you can see that like we're another half a second down. Part of that is obviously the mistake we are not making in Sector 3 compared to the other lap. But have a look on, yeah, this lap. And yeah, this is basically what I could do after a couple of laps here. We can make setups in a million different ways, like a different parameter. So over here, like the fast oversteer on the red line over here is really like a tricky with the rake in the rear wing. But what if I just created something else? What if I wanted, like, listen bro, I just want stability on the last sector, but I want more oversteer and rotation in slow corners. Could we do that? And that's where B-level setups come in. And why are there B-levels? Because I am listening to first myself, but also the feedback from all the community, from the hundreds and hundreds of people who got these setup packs. That's important to me because I lie awake at night like, maybe I could do setups differently. So let's look at the 4.8 B-level. And this is completely different because this one has soft front springs, stiffer rear springs, way less ride height, and different brake bias, different dampers. Okay, yeah, this is basically the same. And with the same preload and TC settings, a little bit less slip angle. Now, have a look on the lap how delta and exits kind of are different. Because this setup struggles more on the planted field when you exit a corner. And this is so personal that like I try to do B levels so you can have like a different flavor in the cars. I don't have B levels for every track, but I start like sprinkling them in, especially for this Porsche. I'm driving a lot of Porsche these days to see what's possible. Let's look at the lap. Now let's look at that B-level setup and see how the car is acting out differently. So when I enter this corner, I kind of lose a little bit of time because the car is just feeling different. And it is such a different car. I just came from the other setup, so I need to get adjusted to this. I created this setups like yesterday. But there, you can see that like the delta is changing throughout every corner section. So over here, this car wants to rotate better under slow corners, but when I hit the throttle, I kind of lack a little bit of that traction on exit, which makes the TC interfere a little bit more. But mid-corner, the car just wants to rotate a lot better. And you can see that here that we improved a little bit in this slow section. Over here, there's like, as soon as I release the throttle, the car wants to rotate, and yeah. Same kind of lap time, completely different feel to the car. And one might enjoy this better, and another person might enjoy something else better. So over here, we can see that we're on the same lap, basically, same lap time. And ignore the top delta, because Race Lab apps always is broken compared to Le Mans Ultimate. Look at the top right, that's actually the delta. So you can see we improved in the second sector. And this just feels a bit more safe to me. But I can also see that it's a little bit limiting and I have to wait a bit more here to get the car to rotate. But I'm actually a little bit down on the time as well. The only problem is that the launch is a little bit more compromised. You can see there's this rotation and that kind of is too much, and it's kind of like the same lap time at the end. Think about your car behavior on the spring settings. For instance, you go stiffer on front springs, and this allows you to use more rake. So now you're favoring high-speed rotation, and the front springs are going to help you to remain stability, but you got a little bit of understeer in slow corners. But the upside is, because of the rear is softer, when you hit the throttle, you get more of this planted feel. So for this setup, you need to kind of rotate the car better under entry. But if you go softer on front springs and a little bit stiffer on rear springs with less rake. Now you have more rotation under throttle, but less planted feel. And obviously, different cars have nuance to this. So, for instance, this spring setup would absolutely not work on a Ferrari, and it would be a suicide on a Corvette, for instance. Also on a Ford, this would be suicide. So, and that's the beauty of car setups, right? If you want to build your own car setups from scratch, you need to do that on Spa, and you need to do that in this video here below. Check it out. Thanks for watching.